it's going to be very difficult, in fact, for one government to change things around completely, because there are no shortcuts. I mean, you can set the country on the right path, but it takes time to come to fruition, all the steps that you take today. So, but the important thing, of course, is to set the country on the right path. Whether you talk politically or economically or socially, the country is heading for rock bottom if it hasn't hit the rock bottom already. Politically, of course, everyone knows that there is a serious problem with the war on terror and Taliban insurgency, as well as drone strikes in the north west of Pakistan. Something needs to be done. This is completely unsustainable. And it costs the country a great deal. Economically, there are a number of challenges as well. So the first challenge, for example, which hits everyone really hard, is that of energy. There are tremendous and long periods of load shedding, which basically means you have to go without electricity. And why is that? Because there is not enough electricity in the system, even though there is about 40% excess capacity in the system. But the government is unable to pay the independent power producers that it has contracted to produce this energy, and simply because the rates are very high, the bill collection is not enough, and so on. So something needs to be done about that, because that is all because of a certain power policy that was put into place in 1994. And in my view, that needs to be reversed, because that has proven to be completely disastrous. At the end of about 16 years, or 18 years, we neither have enough power, nor do we have power that is affordable for the majority of the people. The first thing that was hit was manufacturing, especially the process-based industries, because if the electricity suddenly goes away, all the processes that are sort of going on in the factory then will have to stop, and that will hurt not just the production but also play havoc with the machinery that you have. And so manufacturing has shown negative growth over the past few years, and there has been tremendous unemployment that has been generated as a result of that. So not only do you not have enough power, but the power that you have available is very uncompetitive economically for these people. So your exports will also suffer, and that has been the case over there. Every industry that you take and every economic policy that you take, there are basically political roots to that. So there's a lot of rent seeking that goes on, which basically means that regulations are changed to benefit or favor a select group of industrialists or service providers or businessmen, or perhaps landed elite which wants to come into industry. So that has certainly been the case. I mean, take power for instance. A number of people have benefited from extremely lucrative deals that the government handed out in the 1990s to the private power producers. Take the sugar industry, right, which is completely different from energy. And again, a lot of the sugar industry is basically based on licenses that the government granted to the select few. And you name the industry and you will see that the economic policies that have been followed, or in many cases the economic policies that have been ignored, have all had political motivations. When the new government is elected, it will have to take some very hard decisions. And the first one will be, how do we produce cheap electricity for the people so that we can get back into manufacturing and we can get the industry running? The other decision that it will have to take, of course, is solving the problem of unemployment. You see, you have to realize that about 2/3 of Pakistan is under 30 years of age. So there's a tremendous sort of number of unemployed youth. Okay? And you need to do something about that. Otherwise, you have a social catastrophe on your hands. And so how do you generate employment? Which means that perhaps in some cases you will have to forego more mechanized, more capital-intensive ways of production in favor of more labor-intensive ways, which may not be the most efficient thing to do, but socially that may be the most desirable thing to do. 50% of Pakistan is after 60 years of having gained independence is still illiterate. Now that, of course, is an enormous problem, simply because you can see from the example of various states in India, other places where if you just impart basic literacy to the women there, the health indicators suddenly, the infant mortality, so all the indicators of that suddenly, show dramatic improvements. So that basic literacy is extremely important for any society to function. That also means that people can become more independent. Right now, the people are tremendously entrepreneurial. I have talked to people and come across, sort of thousands of such people who cannot read or write. They cannot read a single billboard when they go out on the street. They do not know what those white and yellow lines on the road mean. And yet they go out and make a living not only for themselves but also for their family. So the entrepreneurial ability is there, but the state needs to sort of facilitate this and harness this so that these people become assets to the country and not a liability. Imran himself is a very progressive person, so he believes in a fair and just society. And people are also extremely disillusioned with the two big parties, which are the PMLN and the PPP. And so, the wind does seem to be blowing that way. We do not know yet, if he's going to win, but certainly the party is very confident that they will do very well in the polls.